Yeah, so this is my first bill that I crossed over the desk.
You might say Southern California Assemblymember Blanca Rubio is living the American dream.
So this is what Susan was sworn in.
And so is her little sister, Senator Susan Rubio.
We're the only sisters in the state of California that have ever, not concurrently, just ever, been in the legislature.
An accomplishment not just for the Rubio sisters,
Here's Daddy.
but for their parents.
He's not wearing his hat. He usually wears a cowboy hat.
A former migrant worker, her dad later worked at a carpet mill.
And that's my mom.
She was a housekeeper for 30 years.
Those two people are the only people that have two daughters in the legislature.
Not bad for, being undocumented,
The
deported.
family was deported when the Rubio sisters were kids.
I was undocumented until I was 13.
Now, more than 40 years later, Rubio says her votes as a moderate Democrat in California's capital are guided by those humble beginnings. But some of those moderate votes have also earned her a nickname from some of her critics, Big Oil Blanca.
What do you say to them? How do you explain your vote on these bills?
Well, for me, I always look at the unintended consequences. Not every community can afford whatever policy we pass out here, not because they don't want to or they're climate deniers, it's because they just can't afford it.
Rubio was one of several Democrats targeted by this billboard campaign from the Progressive Working Families Party, shaming Rubio, along with State Senator Melissa Hurtado of Bakersfield and Bay Area Assemblyman Tim Grayson, for being among the Democrats who accept the most oil money. But they're certainly not alone. In all, California Democrats got nearly 25% more money from big oil than Republicans did this session, mostly because there's a supermajority of Democrats in California. All three targeted Democrats represent counties where a recent Yale climate poll found a majority of respondents think their local officials should do more to address climate change. And while Assemblyman Tim Grayson declined an interview,
What do you say to your constituents?
we caught up with Senator Hurtado at the Capitol.
I'd say I'm on the same page as they are. I want to reduce carbon emissions. I am a believer of climate change.
She represents Kern County, California's largest oil
We
region,
have to think about what's going to
dependent on oil jobs.
keep our economy going.
A closer look at Hurtado, Grayson, and Rubio's donations show, sure, they accepted big oil money, but it's just a sliver of all of their donations. So we did a deep dive into the CalMatters Digital Democracy database, analyzing every dollar donated and every vote cast by every lawmaker in California's capital on every bill that big oil took a position on. And we found oil money doesn't necessarily translate to votes. On average, the Democrats who accepted oil money this session still voted against big oil the majority of the time. However, most of those same Democrats voted with big oil on bills where big oil teamed up with labor.
They don't want to be responsible for losing those jobs.
Capitol insider and law professor Chris McCaley explains the building trade unions represent the people who work in oil, and they carry a lot of weight at the Capitol.
You don't want to chase these jobs away. We want them here.
If oil companies leave the state, the building trades lose jobs. So this session, they teamed up and successfully killed some bills that could be bad for big oil and related jobs.
And these are good paying jobs with tremendous benefits.
For some, jobs are the driving factor when voting against environmental legislation. For others, it's the cost of driving.
Guess who pays the highest rates of gas?
Taxes and environmental programs account for nearly a quarter of your average cost per gallon in California.
When I vote or withhold a vote, I make my constituents the primary focus of how I'm voting.
She says her vote comes down to the impact on people like her parents.
I appreciate that we want to be first, but are we being thoughtful about the unintended consequences?
Rubio's voting record shows, like most Democrats, she still votes against big oil most of the time, but she says when she doesn't, there's a reason.